Welcome to Gavels Down, Voices Up with me, Rachel King. This is where we leave convention at the courtroom door and dive into your real stories, bold and unpopular opinions, and change-making ideas that really shake the legal world up and change where change is desperately needed. I'm here to shake it up, talk about unfiltered insights, and amplify voices that need to be heard. So are you ready? Let's get it. Put the gavels down and the voices up. Gavels down, voices up with attorney Rachel King. And in today's episode, we're going to be venturing into the complex world of estate planning and legal battles of celebrities. Today, we're going to be talking about Michael Jackson. And one of the things that makes celebrity probates or estate plans so complicated is the intangible asset and royalties and all of the things that come with somebody being famous. Michael Jackson. Yes, he has songs, and that's amazing. We'll talk about how well his estate did after he passed away. But honestly, he as a figure and everything that he represented really has a value. Now, I know before we get started, there's a lot of controversy over Michael Jackson and some of the allegations that have been made over the years. And for the purposes of today's episode, we're going to put all of that aside and only talk about him as an artist or a musician. Certainly, if you do not want to listen to this, or if you think that there are other things that need to be taken as a result of the allegations, you are welcome to have those feelings. But for today, we're going to be talking about his estate, not any of his allegations while he was alive. So let's talk a little bit about Michael Jackson right after I tell you that we're going to not talk about any of the allegations from when he was alive, which I'm going to stick with. I am going to talk a little bit about his family. He comes from the Jackson Five. I'm not really going to get into the history of how they became who they were and how Michael Jackson became who he was. Let's just fast forward to the fact that he was a single dad and had 3 children. All right. He also had a mom. As a single dad, he tried to do everything that he could to set his children up for success. And I say this a lot, but I really mean that when we're talking about estate planning, we're really talking about continuing to be the best parents that we can be, even post-mortem, or to package our life in a way that's going to be easy for others to carry on and how we want it to be packaged. So in Michael Jackson's case, he was a single dad. He had 3 children, and he wanted to make sure that if something happened to him, his children were taken care of. So he went and talked to an estate planning attorney, created a trust, named his mother as guardian of his 3 children should anything happen. So from an outsider, you're looking at this and you're like, yeah, that's pretty great. You did all of the things. You did all of the things that we ask people to do. Consider what you want to have happen. Look at your life, and then let's go create the legal paperwork to make it happen. Oh, so what happened? Well, when you create a trust, which Michael Jackson did, he did all of this through a revocable living trust, which real quickly is a trust that you create during your lifetime that you can make changes to, you can revoke, you can modify all while you're alive and you have capacity. So Michael Jackson did that. Why did he choose a revocable living trust? I don't know. I wasn't in that meeting, but probably because he wanted to reserve the right to make changes down the line. Maybe his kids grow up and he likes them or he doesn't like them or his mom dies or whatever the case may be. He wanted to be able to make changes, so he probably chose a revocable living trust for those reasons. Nonetheless, he drafted with his attorney or with his legal team a revocable living trust, where again, he identified his 3 children and he named his mother as guardian of the children. So you think, all right, and then he dies, everything should be fine, right? Wrong. Michael Jackson forgot to fund the trust. Now, who knows why the trust wasn't funded? I'm not going to go in and try and presume, but the funding of a trust is a very necessary step. Why? Because it's what adds all of the assets to the trust. The trust is written. It says what's going to happen. It basically gives the directions for how to handle all of these assets. But unless you add the assets to the trust, there's really nothing to control. We have a bucket. I always like to explain, let's pretend a trust is a bucket. And in that bucket, we've got directions on what to do with the bucket. We're going to make a sand castle. So to make a sand castle, you take the bucket, you fill it with sand, you add some water, you bring it to the perfect consistency, you pack it down really hard, you flip it over, you pull the bucket off, and then you have this beautiful sandcastle. Well, what happens if you forget to put the sand into the bucket? None of the directions really matter. You have no sandcastle. And that happens when you don't fund a trust. You have all these beautiful directions, but you don't have anything to control. It's kind of surprising that Michael Jackson's legal team forgot to fund the trust. It's more common that I see individuals using online legal tools, do-it-yourself legal tools, that forget to fund their trust because maybe it's just a step they're not aware of. It's not enough to just say, for example, I want my house to go to my child in the trust and then to list the address of the house. You actually have to change the title of the trust. That's one extra step. All right, so Michael Jackson, he forgot to fund his trust. That's a big problem. Now, you add in that when he passed away, he was roughly $500 million in debt. That's a lot of money. The amount of money that he was in debt is the amount of money that I would earn during my lifetime, like in my wildest dreams and fantasies. I can't even comprehend how one earns $500 million, let alone goes into debt $500 million. I don't think my credit card companies would take me seriously if I asked for an increase in my spending limit, even up to $1 million. They'd probably look at me and say, yeah, fat chance. Actually, we think you are facing financial difficulties since you want to borrow so much money, and we're going to close your account. Anyway, Michael Jackson, because of who he was able to get himself into about $500 million worth of debt when he died. Now, that's wild to me. But the thing that even tops that is after he died, post-mortem, he was able to become worth more than $1 billion, I think is what it says. It's like the $1 billion post-mortem turnaround or something. How do you go from being in the whole 500 million bucks to then after you die, all of a sudden your estate is worth over $1 billion? I don't really know, but I can guarantee that the issues that his estate is facing are because he went from being in debt to being worth so much more. If his estate at negative 500 million, we probably wouldn't be having all of the fights and all of the arguments that we're having or that his estate faced. So some of the things that Michael Jackson's estate faced are tax evaluations. So taxes, oh gosh, everybody hates taxes, except maybe the government. The government doesn't seem to hate taxes, so they talk an awful lot about them and trying to lower them. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. But here's what I tell people. It's challenging to get away or get out of paying any taxes when you die. There's a way to put off taxes. There's a way to reduce taxes and to handle some of the assets. But the bottom line is that very likely at some point the government is going to come in and going to want their money. And when you have an estate that becomes worth $1 billion, you bet your butt the government's going to have that on their radar. Seems like it's better spending time to spend some money on IRS agents trying to get what they believe they're due under Michael Jackson's $1 billion estate than maybe somebody who's bringing in $100,000. So there's estate taxes, there are inheritance taxes potentially, there can be capital gains taxes, depending on the trust and how the money is being held. If they were able to fund the trust, there's going to be trust taxes. There are all of these things. There's step up in basis. There's so many different financial considerations, and we have to figure out how to value it. How did Michael Jackson's estate get evaluated and valued at $1 billion? Well, that's what everybody was fighting over. The IRS wants it to be very high, and the heirs want it to be very low. Why does the IRS want it to be high? Because current estate planning or estate laws say that after a certain amount of money, everything is taxed at estate tax level. So not only do they need the evaluation to be over the minimum threshold, but they want it to be high because estate taxes are high and the government has some incentive to get it to be valued high. Same time, the beneficiaries want it to be lower. Why? One, so the government doesn't go and take all of the money, but two, so the money's there to raise his 3 children and the lifestyle that they've become accustomed to which I can only surmise is a pretty nice lifestyle if you are Michael Jackson's child and he went into $500 million in debt. Maybe some of it was because of you. I don't know. And now for a quick break. This episode of Gavels Down, Voices Up is proudly brought to you by King Law Firm Attorneys at Law Incorporated. We're not just about winning cases, we're about making a difference. Whether it's family law, probate litigation, or standing up against elder abuse, we bring experience, empathy, and excellence to the courtroom. At King Law Firm, we're more than lawyers. We're your team, in your corner, advocating for your rights and making your voice heard. Visit us at thelawyerking.com and on the socials at The Lawyer King to see how we fight with you and for you. King Law Firm Attorneys at Law Incorporated, where your fight becomes our fight. Now, let's get back to today's episode. All right, so we have Michael Jackson's estate. Everybody has an interest. Everybody from different perspectives wants it to be valued at a different amount. And we've got intangible assets. Intangible assets are really hard to evaluate. If we have a car, we can go and say, well, the value of this car is $5,000 because there's a similar car of make, model, and mileage and wear and tear and all of that, and it sold recently for $5,000. We don't really have another Michael Jackson, which with his reputation, his skill, his talent, everything that he owned, and really what makes him him. We don't have another one to evaluate him. We also don't know how much money his potential will be. We see that it's quite a bit because of the debt that he was in versus how much his estate became worth. So evaluating and coming up with a valuation of intangible assets is also very challenging. And that's one of the hardest things that we have to deal with when we have celebrity estates. Michael Jackson's not the first celebrity to have a difficult estate plan or a failed estate plan. We have seen over and over again celebrities that have not made an estate plan and their cases end up in trial for what seems like ever, decades. There have been celebrities that have had their estates in probate for decades. And here's what many people don't realize. When the celebrity, or really anybody's estate for that matter, is going through turmoil, like how much it's worth, who's entitled to it, all of that, the assets are typically frozen. That's right. Nobody gets to use them until it's figured out. In Michael Jackson's case, the court froze the assets and then allowed a family allowance to be paid from the estate to care for his children. I don't know what that family allowance was, but it's likely fairly high. So what happens when at the end of this, it drags on and on, hopefully not for decades, but a celebrity's case drags on for decades. It's paying out a family allowance. When it finally shakes out, maybe there's no money left. Maybe it all goes to lawyers. Who knows? Some of the challenges that we see when we're dealing with celebrity estates is one, how to evaluate their intangible assets, their goodwill. Two, like it or not, many celebrities have relationships outside of the one that's in the public. They might be married and have children of the marriage, but they might also have a child that nobody knows about from a hookup with the maitre d' at a restaurant when they were over in London or across the world. In those cases, actually, more and more, we're seeing celebrities step up and identify this child, but in a very confidential way through a trust or some kind of estate. But if they don't, many times these children, these people that are entitled to some kind of interest or want to claim an interest or recognition, come forward at death and they start saying, hey, look at me. I want to be part of this. I should have been. And they can cause a muck. Also with celebrities, we have huge intellectual property rights. Who owns the song? Who wrote the song? Who owns the music? Who owns the right to the music? Do producers, songwriters, vocalists, bands, production managers, so many people have rights to the intellectual property that really trying to figure out how much the actual celebrity's value is can be very difficult. Same would be for a celebrity like Robin Williams, who wasn't in the music industry, but was in the film industry. We have to go through and look at all of the contracts for everything that he did and see, are there royalties? What does it say about how he gets paid and how it goes down? And was there an estate plan that was created to protect this? Nonetheless, we always get a kick out of celebrity drama, whether it's divorce or death, from birth to death, right? We are following celebrities and we get a kick out of everything they do, but arguably we get a kick out of the things that go wrong more than things that go right. Of course, our thoughts go out to all of the family members of every celebrity that's passed away. It can be a really challenging time, and having a court situation adds fuel. It does not allow people to grieve in most cases. If you or a family member are involved in a situation where there is a trust or will contest or something gone wrong in an estate plan, you want to make sure that you reach out to a very experienced estate planning, or actually, if you're in court, a very experienced litigation attorney in that area of law. My name's Rachel King. I am a strategic litigator, and you can follow me on all of the socials. In fact, reach out at the Lawyer King. Tell me about any of the estate plans gone wrong that you are aware of. I would love to hear it. I think we can always learn lessons from things that have happened in the past. Thanks for tuning in to Gobbles Down, Voices Up. Like what you heard? Then don't just sit there. Subscribe, share, and tell me your thoughts. I'm Rachel King, bringing not just my opinions to the mic, but about the courtroom too. Your part, keep listening, keep engaging, and until next time, let's keep those gobbles down and our voices up. Unmistakably up.